Hello, fellow Kpows! Kani ka food episode jongi but ni kong ako wan ay kublay pisya ki viewers baro badi lang baga support jong pi ba kani ka podcast jongi kal asawa siya do siya po UK idon iwi ibreu iba kerteng kwa Karl Swanepoel iba day na po kani ka company Revolancer kata company Revolancer kadi ka freelancing kanjaga freelancing company like freelancing website hakaba pila ban let ban kidon kibun mo ikam hang tu kidon gum kani ka content writing kini graphic designing website designing kibun hang tu pila ban let hang tu pila ban apply nam tai tu ikam man le freelancing long pila ban le kata na yeng ro temtas kata ka podcast kande online nganganam don hang ta podcast indon i ko orang ba jungi i hanef imdon mentang ni tamin sedon haka podcast te ta kata hi kubli shibu ni bisa baro keep liking keep subscribing bye.
So I did share an email with you. I hope you got to see that, or you didn't have the time.
Unfortunately, I haven't yet. It's been a very hectic couple of days. But yeah, if it was with questions or so, like I said, I'm more than happy to just take them on the spot and have a discussion like that.
I'm really I have so many questions to ask you. That being said, because whatever you are doing, and I told you last time what I do for a living and how I coach these kids and all that. Now, the first question that I wanted to ask you is that how did the idea of Revolancer come to you?
Sure. So essentially, I had started freelancing to try and make some money online at the age of 14. I realized quickly that the existing platforms just weren't serving freelancers right. So, I was paying high commission fees. I couldn't speak with my clients outside of the platform, and it was hard to find clients in the first place. So, quite quickly, I realized that wasn't really going to work for me. It led to me at the age of 15, I started a platform called Buy Sell Jobs. I grew that to about 2,000 users without any marketing budget. And essentially I had to end up selling that platform because I couldn't run it because PayPal would close my accounts as I was under 18. And then basically when so in other words, back then in 2015, I already thought that the existing way of doing things wasn't working and was completely outdated. So then in 2021, at the beginning of 2021, when we had COVID, and that obviously changed how we work remotely in terms of video calling and various other tools, I was very horrified to see that these platforms that I had freelanced on back in 2014, 2015, they still were doing the exact same thing. They had not changed. They had not innovated. So I thought, now is really the time to bring this freelance platform space into the 21st century. So with that, decided to start Revolancer. The main advantages of Revolancer are that we don't charge any commissions as opposed to easily 20% plus on some of the large platforms today. And because of that, we can allow people to talk outside of the platform, so they can video call, email, talk on Slack or wherever else is convenient. So yeah, it sort of came from my own experience of selling on freelancing platforms, buying on freelancing platforms, even running my own one briefly in the past, and then just seeing that the space wasn't really innovating, so I wanted to do something about that, and hence why I started Revolancer.
Okay, I just checked the other day some reviews that I checked, and there were some people from India itself. They were making videos on YouTube about Revolancer, and they were really appreciating your effort. That being said, I saw two plans there. One where you are not charge anything, and there's another paid version. Now, how is the paid version different from the free version and the offers that we get from other websites like Upwork or freelancer.com or Fiverr? How is it different from them, the paid version?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's very important to me that a freelancer can get started on the platform, for free without paying anything up front. And that's why we have the free plan. The free plan gives you everything you need to secure your first client work, in which case you can reinvest a small part of your earnings into the paid plan if you choose to. The advantages of the paid plan is you can send more bids to clients. So there's no cap. You can send unlimited bids to clients on projects. You can see insights into how other freelancers are bidding. So, if you can see that there are lots of people bidding a very low amount on a certain project, you can decide, oh, okay, maybe I don't want to bid on that one, and sort of, spend your time in a sort of a smarter way. And you also get the premium version of the Plus page, which is like a mini website designed for use on social media, and a couple of other small things too. But that's kind of the meat of it. So if you're more of a power user and kind of, are constantly sourcing different clients and so on, then it's definitely worth being on the Plus plan. But again, you can absolutely get started on the free plan until you make some money, and then you can reinvest some of that.
So you started this in the year 2021, right?
Yes, right at the beginning of 2021.
It's been a good growth. I mean, like just in a span of 1 year, you've had more than 15,000 registered users, right?
Yes, that's right. So a year ago, we had, more or less just launched the platform, and we had about 600 users on the platform. And today we have 15,000. So it's been quite a journey, and now the aim is to get to 100,000 by the end of, by this time next year.
Okay. I did follow Revolancer on LinkedIn also, and I do see that you try to do things organically. Means you're trying to grow in an organic manner. But is there any paid promotion that you do so that you can? Means what are you doing about the marketing part?
Yeah, sure. So, one thing that I'll say is if you look at people per hour and you go to their Instagram page, I think they have more followers than we do, but maybe like 3 times as many. Whereas, they have 4 million users on their platform. And basically what that tells us is that social media presence isn't necessarily the best way to promote a freelancing platform. We don't do any paid promotion currently on LinkedIn. We have a little bit in the past, but we do other things. A big part of it, for example, is influencer collaborations. That works really well. So influencers who have an audience of freelancers will pay to promote Revolancer to their audience.
Okay, so when you got started, like every entrepreneur, how many were there as your co-founders? How many of you started this?
Yeah, so basically I started it completely by myself right at the beginning, and then after about 3 months, I won a competition at my university. I secured a bit of initial seed funding, and then I connected with my co-founder, who's the CTO, who then basically built the platform. And from there, we then started expanding the team into different directions as well.
Okay, so it's only you and your co-founder now, or you have a bigger team?
Yeah, we're a team of 7 right now, and we're looking to bring that to 15 by the end of this quarter approximately. So we're hiring for a few different roles at the moment.
I believe Kay is your virtual assistant. So would you consider her as your team member or somebody who...
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, she's incredibly helpful what she does.
Yes, she is. She's been really warm to me. She's been really nice to me, and then she's guided me wherever I face any kind of challenges. Now, when you got started, what were the challenges that you faced? You started during the COVID. So what were the challenges that you faced?
Lots of different challenges. A lot of what with my journey with Revolancer, there were many firsts for me. Employing people, setting up a pension scheme, fundraising, connecting with investors, so many firsts for me. So they were challenges along the way. But I always, have an approach of where I don't need to have the answers up front. I recognize that it's not possible to have all the answers up front. But you just need to kind of learn fast, kind of tackle issues as they come up. And then at the end, you'll have, maybe most of the answers, but at the beginning, you won't have all of the answers. So, yeah, lots of different things. But my attitude is always, just to take one thing at a time and then solve it and learn from it.
Okay. And being an entrepreneur, I'm pretty much sure you were also inspired by someone who has been your source of inspiration.
There are quite a few. I'd say until recently, the main one I would point at is Elon Musk. But honestly, with some of his behavior recently, I'm not so sure I would say that anymore. I think he has done some interesting and impressive things, but I think he's also seems to be trying very hard to destroy his credibility at the moment for some reason. I don't quite know what he's doing at all. But yeah, he has in the past been, quite an interesting source of inspiration. Yeah, I mean I'd say he's kind of the main one. Then other than that, there are lots of other books that I've read about, biographies of certain founders. Steve Jobs is a very interesting founder as well. But I think oftentimes with these very successful founders, there are just as many bad things about them as there are good things about them, so it's tough to kind of point at, one of them and kind of say, oh, that's my role model. I'd say, my philosophy is more, I want to be better than I was yesterday, and kind of, I don't really compare myself to other people. I don't think it's very useful to do that. I only compare myself to myself, yesterday, a week ago, a year ago, that kind of stuff, and sort of seeing where I am today relative to that, and I find that most useful.
Okay. I believe the Elon Musk saga is because of his involvement in Twitter.
Yeah, I mean but then also the question is why did he buy it? Why did he buy it at the value that he bought it at? That I think it's strange to say the least.
Most probably, if I'm not mistaken, I think it's because of the cancel culture that kept on happening, where they banned the Twitter account of people like Donald Trump and all that. Maybe that's where he wanted to intervene. But I see, I mean, like, for example, there is this influencer who's a very polarizing figure. He's half British and half American. You know whom I'm talking about.
I think so.
Yeah. So he's, I mean, like, and then he also was removed from all the social media platform. But these platforms like Rumble are still supporting them. So what's your take on the cancel culture?
Well, I think that with the internet and with social media, I mean, I read a very interesting book. I think it was called The People versus the Internet. I can't remember the author, but a very interesting book. And it basically talks about how the internet has re-tribalized society. So, originally we as humans were a tribal kind of society. So, we want to stick to people who we think are like us. We kind of, unite against like a common enemy, like people who are different. And that was, was like millions or maybe not, like tens, hundreds of thousands of years ago, potentially. And now I think, that modern society has come a long way to getting rid of that, because that's such a stupid way of thinking. But I think it's also kind of deeply ingrained with us to some degree. And the issue with the internet is that it's kind of bringing that back out. So in other words, let's say if before the internet, if you believed the earth was flat, you kind of think, you could go and you could speak to people about that, and quite quickly people would kind of tell you, no, that's not the case. They'd explain to you the science behind it. You could go to the library, you could read books about it, whatever. So basically what it means is any kind of like quite extreme, strange opinions that are not backed up by fact kind of naturally get removed because of your day-to-day interactions with people. It goes away. Whereas today, if you believe the earth is flat, you can just go onto like an internet forum and only speak with people who agree with you. So it kind of creates that echo chamber. It creates that kind of tribe. And the point I'm trying to get to is essentially that there, on the surface, I think it's easy to say that cancel culture is a really bad thing, like especially when it comes to platforms removing people, it's a very bad thing. But I also think that the amount of influence that somebody can have today through the internet can be potentially very dangerous. So if somebody in that position were to start saying things that incite, violence, or incite kind of people being misogynistic or racist or whatever it is, something needs to be done about that. And I think that, your kind of right to your personal freedom and your right to free speech sort of should end when it starts messing with somebody else's rights. So, let's say if you're a certain unnamed influencer and you kind of talk about kind of spout a misogynistic, say that misogynistic things, and then it means that your fan base treat women, worse because of that, I would say that that's not really your kind of, you shouldn't just have an automatic right to do that, because through your actions, you are actually causing a lot of harm on a large scale. So I do think that to some degree, it is important that platforms remove, or sort of deplatform certain individuals just because of the amount of harm they can potentially do. But then it becomes very complicated for how do you judge that? And I think that's a question that's kind of really kind of quite impossible to answer. But I do think generally, even if these platforms might be a bit heavy-handed sometimes and rigged in how they do it, I would rather they are too heavy-handed maybe in banning some controversial people rather than not ban anyone at all. And that then means that these, people who kind of have a voice, who talk in a very influential way and then can cause some real harm very, very quickly because of the influence that you can so easily have online nowadays. Before the age of the internet, kind of having your voice heard, your opinions heard by a million people would have been nearly impossible, whereas today it's relatively easy. I'm not saying it's super easy, but you don't need some kind of big PR team, relationships with lots of different newspapers, TV channels or whatever. You can try different creative things in your bedroom, more or less for free, and maybe hit 1 million views. So yeah, long story short, I think it's very, very complicated. I can see both sides to it.
I agree. It's really hard, because in one way you want to protect the freedom of speech, but at the same time, somebody's freedom of speech really brings harm to a section of society where misogynistic views are, becomes the normal. So I agree with you on that. Actually, before coming to the podcast, I listed down a few questions which I have on my phone. Would you mind if I read them to you? I
Yes.
wanted to know. All right.
Absolutely.
I'm taking my phone. I'm sorry for my manners here, but I just had some question. Now, the next question that I have for you is that, can you tell us about your background and how you got started in entrepreneurship? How did this journey start?
Yeah, sure. So it started at quite a young age. It started with freelancing, but basically I decided one day that I didn't want to go the traditional route. I wanted to build something for myself. I knew that I wouldn't be a good employee. I don't think I'd be sort of much good working for anyone else. So I thought, well, with that in mind, I want to work for myself. So at the age of, around 13 or 14, I started trying to make money online. It started with freelancing. It started with like building different websites, seeing what works. So, and then it was something that I really enjoyed. And it's always something that I did as a hobby, and kind of ignored school to do. So it's something which from the beginning I really enjoyed. Even today, sometimes it feels like I'm just, procrastinating and not doing anything productive, even when I'm working a very long day and actually, in reality doing lots of productive things. So, it's kind of something that I don't know why I realized that I wanted to work for myself long term at that young age, but I was right. And it's the case until the present day as well.
Actually, it's really nice to get this answer from you, because before the pandemic, when I used to be a school teacher, I used to always talk about, teenage from the UK and US start hustling from a very young age, and then we're still a part of this traditional education where you just are considered to be intelligent provided you know how much you can memorize. And that's one thing. And I have a son who's going to turn 12 tomorrow. It's his birthday tomorrow, my elder son. And then he also is still learning what I was learning. And this was also mentioned in our first episode of podcast. So this is a proof that you started at a very young age, and it is very much possible. So thank you for that. Now the next question here is that, can you walk us through the process of starting and scaling your business? How did it all get started? You launched it a year, means 1.5 years back, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, more or less. It was just under 1.5 years. The platform went live.
Okay, so how did you scale up to 15,000 users?
Yeah, I mean it's a very good question. I think the easiest way to answer it is trial and error and lots of error. You have to try lots of different things. Most of them will fail, but you just have to keep trying, keep trying. I mean, ideally what you want is you want some kind of element of the users on the platform tell other users of the platform on it. So, if that's an affiliate scheme, some kind of reward scheme, or just that the platform is so good, that people will naturally tell others about it. And you can measure that too with something called Net Promoter Score or NPS. So ideally that's what you want, and that's what you can call a flywheel. So, if you know that if you bring one user on, they will bring one other user on, over the next 2 months. And that means, you can kind of let's say, pump lots of money into advertising, and then that will kind of just start spiraling up and up and up. So that's the best place to start, is kind of figuring out how can you get a user to bring other users on without building some kind of, multi-level marketing or pyramid scheme, obviously. The best way to do this is to just talk to your users and really solve the problem so much better than any of your competitors, so people will naturally tell other people about it. That's by far the best way to do this. So yeah, that's the first component. And then the second component is just kind of growth hacking. So, it depends what kind of budget you have. If you don't have that big of a budget, kind of trying to figure out, well, where does your kind of target audience hang out online, let's say, and how can you easily get in front of them? So that might be, you go to certain Facebook groups or to certain, groups on Reddit, or you make a YouTube video or something like that, and you just kind of get it in front of that audience and you get them on, they will then like the platform so much because you've already, measured this, that they bring more people on, and you can just kind of keep going like that. And then once you get some revenue and you can start pumping that into paid advertising and, just pump, accelerate the flywheel basically. So yeah, I mean, it's trial and error. The other important thing to keep in mind is that you will spend, the first 80% of the time achieving 20% of the results, and then, the last 20% of the time achieving 80% of the results or so. So it's completely normal maybe for it to take you 3 months to get 100 people to use the platform, but then 3 months later you have 5,000 people using the platform, something like that. So the important thing is just to keep trying different things and not be disheartened if at the beginning you don't see the kind of growth you're looking for, because it's never linear.
So you just mentioned the Pareto principle in practical.
Yeah,
The Pareto
exactly.
principle, the 80-20 rule. I always tell my interns about the 80-20 rule. Now, what suggestion would you have for somebody who is starting with entrepreneurship? I mean, what is it that you would always recommend to them? I know you will say keep on failing and learn from them, but apart from that, means what else do you have in mind?
Well, I mean, you have to make sure if you have to understand why you want to do it. What are your motivations? If you want to start a business because your primary aim is to make a lot of money, then don't start a business, or start a very specific kind of business. Definitely don't try and start a tech startup, because the chances are it'll fail. The chances that it will actually become a unicorn or so, it's just slim to none. So you need to understand why are you doing this. If your goal is basically to just make a lot of money, then go and work in finance or something. But if if you're really passionate about solving a certain problem, and that's what drives you, then it might be more for you, if that's kind of what drives you primarily. And then it's absolutely, you need to get comfortable with the idea of failing and fail forward. And also another important thing to realize, which I think when I was starting out, I didn't realize, which I very much realize now, is I don't know everything. I know much more now than I did at 14, but when I was 14, I thought I knew much more than I know now. I was very kind of arrogant when I started out. I remember I made $100 online or something, and just sort of thought, I had made it in life. But that's kind of cringeworthy thinking back now. But basically like understand, be very honest with yourself, understand your strengths and weaknesses, be comfortable with the fact that you don't know everything, because, you know, you can talk to other people who have done things before, who have, you know, who you can learn from and get their input. So when I entered the startup competition at my university, I presented my pitch to about 30 individuals who I had reached out to. Some people I knew, some people I met through family, some people I met online who were just strangers before, some people I met through former clients, but basically lots of people with lots of different skill sets, backgrounds in business, and basically just pitched to them and then got their feedback and then acted on their feedback. You know, sometimes they would tell me contradictory things. You know, and that's why these people give you advice, but you ultimately have to make the final decision. But keep in mind, like, why are they saying this? If they misunderstand something, it's not because they're stupid. Maybe you're not explaining it properly. So you need to understand, like, why are they misunderstanding this? Or, like, why don't they like this? Do they have a point? And then if you can sort of come to the conclusion of, no, they're just misunderstanding something, or, you know, it does actually make sense, at least you've really thought it through at that point, or you might decide to change something. And I ended up winning that competition, and a very large part of that, in fact, I'd say the number one reason for that is because I worked with so many different people to really refine my pitch. And then when it came to actually pitching it to the judges, it was very easy to understand. It was very thorough. It covered all the bases. And I had already practiced it many times too, which always helps as well.
Okay. And I mean, like, this thing, I mean, like, from what I could understand about Revolancer, and means you said that the challenges that you faced, you know, where your 80% of effort gave you 20% of the outcome at the initial stage. So that was growing the users, I mean, like the freelancers, if I'm not mistaken. How did you get the clients? Because it is all about trying to merge supply and demand. How did the clients get onboarded?
Yeah, absolutely. So again, I mean, there are lots of different ways that we have tried. There are lots of ways that work. There are even more ways that don't. You kind of just have to think about, you know, who's the target client? What are they doing right before they hire a freelancer? So they might be searching something in Google. They might be asking something on Facebook. You know, I don't want to reveal the exact things that we use on here. But, you know, in terms of like more general advice is, you know, talk to your customers, understand their sort of needs, understand what they're currently doing, what current solutions are doing, and how they're finding those. And then just think about how you can insert yourself into that journey in some way. So like, let's say for argument's sake, I'm a takeaway order delivery app or something. Someone might search, you know, pizza takeaway London or something like that. So then I want to either do some kind of SEO to get to the top of that page, you know, or kind of in an organic way, or I want to get Google AdWords, so I'm appearing at the top of that page. There are different, you know, so that's sort of a good starting point. Or equally, you know, if it's sort of your business revolves around a certain hobby or a certain community, then maybe on a Facebook, you know, there's a Facebook group or a Reddit kind of page where that community is talking, and you can sort of integrate it there. So yeah, you basically just have to think about what are the customer's needs, make sure you're sort of solving those, and also understanding where best to contact, you know, where best to start that sort of relationship with the customer.
So as far as I could understand, I mean, like, it was search engine optimization or search engine marketing that really helped you?
It's that's a small part of it. There are lots of different things. You know, with us, it's sort of, I mean, I already had experience dealing with the same kind of clients that we have on Revolancer, running a small web and marketing agency. So that, yeah, I mean, there are lots of different ways to contact clients. I mean, I don't want to disclose our exact strategy on this podcast, but
I respect that.
Yeah,
I get it. I actually, when I was thinking about Revolancer, it's only about time, you know, when all the freelancers come to know about it. Because the kind of offer that you are giving them, it's something that they can't refuse. Same goes for the clients as well. So I will not be surprised if you hit the 100K user by this year, and I'm wishing you all the good luck.
Yeah, well, thank you very much. I hope that we'll get there.
And the next question that I have for you is, may I?
Yeah, of course.
Now, here's the next question: is that how do you stay informed about industry trends and innovation? I'm like every now and then something or the other, just like how the AI is going to change things and then take away, they say, 85 million jobs by 2025. So, how do you keep yourself informed with the new things coming up, with the new trends?
I mean, reading the news is kind of a big part of it. Also, having conversations with different people on my team who are also, kind of getting certain information from different sources and sharing that, can be quite useful. But also, if something like, for example, ChatGPT comes out, actually experimenting with it, using it, because I think a lot of the current rhetoric about ChatGPT in the media, I think, is exaggerated, because I think in many ways it is incredibly impressive, and I don't want to underplay that, but I think in many ways the whole rhetoric about it just erasing most jobs, I think that's such an exaggeration, especially in the short term with the current product, because the current product, I think in most cases it needs some level of quality assurance or human input to really check the output. For example, I asked it at one point to prove that 0.9 recurring is equal to 1. And then it very confidently answered me. It had like a step-by-step proof. One of the steps in the proof was, and therefore 8 over 9 is equal to 1. And therefore 0.9 recurring is equal to 1. I have just proven this, something like that. So that's the issue. It'll always respond in a very confident way, even if it's saying complete rubbish. So you will still need that human quality assurance kind of point. But I think the use case there is, it can remove a lot of the kind of grunt work. So, rather than you writing a whole big article, get ChatGPT to generate the article, and then you just edit it to make sure it's right. So it's saving you time, So I think it's going to be, maybe some jobs are in danger, but I think it's much less than people might think. And I think it'll be used more to enhance current jobs. So now, rather than you having to sit there and write all these boring articles, you get ChatGPT to write them for you. You just kind of edit them. You make the final touches. And I think that's where the kind of sort of, the future of the humans in workforce, that's more where that lies, and the grunt work is being done by AI.
Even I'm of the opinion that, Chat GPT just enhances you and makes you more powerful. I'm like, it's not going to take away your job, because I've also I have a few clients, and, I use Chat GPT to ensure that all the work being done by my team is driven by AI. But again, there are tools like Midjourney. And the kind of art that it gives just on a few prompt, that is something really phenomenal. And today also I was just showing it to a few of my students, and I said that, okay, this is some art that has been generated by an AI, and if we were to start a print on demand business model where you can print on t-shirts and all that, would you buy it? Then they were like, yes, they will. So
yeah. But it's exactly like you just said there. It's empowering, humans to kind of do more and get further. It's helping them rather than taking it away. ChatGPT, not ChatGPT, but sort of this art generation platform. It can't start its own print-on-demand business and then basically make a bunch of money and drive your print-on-demand business, out of business. That's just not kind of the realistic use case of AI nowadays.
And what's your take on this one, another tool by OpenAI called Codex?
I'm not super familiar with it, unfortunately. So
I just saw a few videos here and there, and it's like, you just give it a prompt for building your website and all that, and it gives you the code. But the only thing is that these codes are kind of long. If a good coder has to do it, maybe he'll get it done in 10 lines of code. But that way it's very, very lengthy. But let's see what happens with GPT-4, because you're somebody who has done machine learning and AI too, right? You said you studied that in your university.
Yes, I did.
Yeah. So with ChatGPT, we have only 20 billion data sets. And now I'm a little confused with GPT-4. They are saying it's either 1 trillion or 175 trillion data sets that will be used to train this model. So it's going to be very powerful because as we speak about GPT-3, it has 175 billion data inputs, and let's see how that goes. So what do you think will happen with the enhanced version, in your opinion?
I mean, it'll probably be sort of, better than the current version. But again, I don't think it will be perfect. I think, I think, my answer doesn't change too much. I think it'll be a useful tool for people to use to deliver their jobs more efficiently. Maybe it will mean that some jobs are no longer needed. So sort of you can achieve the same with a smaller team and ChatGPT. But then again, I think, there will continue to be useful things for people to do for a while. If we're talking a very long time in the future, I don't know. But for a while still, there'll be many things that humans can do better than AI. So there will be other opportunities. I'm sure that will kind of, become available. But it's very interesting. I think, the bottom line is I don't know. I mean, that's my opinion is that in the short term, the impact of ChatGPT will be a lot smaller than is kind of being speculated about in the media at the moment. But long term, tools like this, I don't know. It could change how, it could change kind of the workforce quite significantly, in which case, the conversation needs to go or sort of, be around, do we have a universal basic income, or sort of what do people do in a world where basically, most, if not all jobs can be automated, better and cheaper than using humans. So what do humans do then? It's very interesting. I mean, I've thought about it a lot, but basically, I think that maybe in the long-term future, we will get to that kind of point, but I don't think it's going to be in I think it's going to really be in at least a few decades. I certainly don't think we're sort of talking next year or anything like that.
I personally believe that with the enhancement of AI, humans are going to become more creative actually. And that's what I believe, and it'll make the world a much more better place, and that's what I personally feel. The other day also I was telling my team members and my interns that I was saying that if I ever need 10 employees, I'll just need to create 10 emails and then tell the AI to do my task, but it will make humans more creative. So that's there.
Oh, certainly. Yeah.
And let me just read a few more questions to you. I hope you're not getting bored.
No, not at all. Not at all.
No. Now, when it comes to a team, I mean, like, see, whenever we get started as entrepreneurs, we always end up in firefighting spree, and building a team is very, very important because, your team members shouldn't be doing what you are doing. You should always complement one another. So what are the challenges that you face in means building a team? What are the challenges?
Yeah, I mean, it's a very delicate thing. It's kind of like building a house of cards, where one, I mean, I've heard before one wrong hire in your first 10 hires can completely tank the whole project. So, you kind of need to define the company culture and then really fight to protect it. So with everyone you hire, you need to hire slow and fire fast is the saying. You need to really get to know the people you're going to be working with before you let them in. And then if they turn out to be the wrong fit, let them go fast, because if you have the wrong person on the team, they can completely mess up the whole project and everyone else's workflow and satisfaction and so on. So, it's kind of figuring out what kind of culture you want and then just building towards that. So, and the more you do it as well, the better gut feeling you'll develop as well for if someone is the right fit or not. So Yeah, I mean, team is the most important thing in my opinion. A company is a team of people who are sort of driven to solve a common goal, a common problem. So it's all about the people, but you need to make sure that it's the right group of people, and that's very important and shouldn't be underestimated.
Okay. Now, for anybody who tries to learn any new skills, let's say it can be coding or it can be copywriting or it can be digital marketing or content creation or graphics designing. I mean, like, let's say without me asking for favor from you, and let's say if I were to guide my intern to get a gig from your platform, what is one suggestion that you would have for them so that they will end up getting a client and make a living out of it? What would be your suggestion?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, it comes down to having a really good presentation. So, having a well kind of filled out profile, showing plenty of examples of past work, telling clients about yourself, and then, listing your services. And then when you have a very nice profile, it's about, just going out proactively and bidding on client projects, and then sooner or later you're likely to score your first client. If it goes well, they'll leave you a positive review, then now you have a review on your profile too, and that cycle just keeps going.
Okay, no, because I've seen a lot of people, when they try to learn a few skills and then they go to these freelancer websites, like, I've already mentioned the name, they don't end up getting anything and it really disappoints them, and then they go back to the normal where 90% of the mass do. I mean, like, they just get back to doing that only. I mean, like, they just want a sense of security and they don't want to, they think that freelancer doesn't work. So that's that.
Well, you could always do both at the same time. As you start the freelancing side, you could still be in in another job. And then once that looks like it can start becoming a full-time thing, once you build up more and more clients, then you can just switch. You can go into that full-time. Okay. So, it doesn't have to be, you leave your job and then, you start from scratch with freelancing. You can do both at the same time until it's the right time to jump over to doing freelancing full-time.
Okay, so you would suggest that let them have a job, but at the same time start a side hustle.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say aim to be in a position to be able to do your side hustle full time or your freelancing job full time, but understand that that's not really how the world works. That it's unlikely that within a week of starting freelancing you're suddenly going to have the work to do it full time. So if you need to be supported financially, then yes, do another job at the same time and then kind of start slowly building up the freelancing side in the evenings or something, and then once you have more clients, once you can do it full time, then, change rather than just abruptly leaving your job. Now suddenly you need money urgently and you're trying to start freelancing because, freelancing oftentimes is quite competitive and it takes a while to get started and to really build a good, resume of client work. So just take it slowly at the beginning, and don't rush to leave a job if that's, what's paying the bills at the moment.
Is there any suggestion that you would have for the young people who let's say in their teenage, if they have to ever take up entrepreneurship?
You mean like more entrepreneurship or more freelancing?
Entrepreneurs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I mean, you have to kind of start by finding out, like figuring out what you're good at, what you're not so good at. Find a problem that that you can verify lots of people have, that you're very passionate about solving. And that's the best way to start a business. The best way to start a business is definitely not with an idea, because the odds of you thinking of the right idea that people will want to use and pay for, without any data is slim to none. And if you do magically think of the right idea, it's pure luck, which means that you haven't learned anything, and next time you're not going to get lucky probably. And then, yeah, so the best way to start a business is to start with a problem. So, kind of identify a problem that a group of people have that current solutions aren't really good enough for, And these people, you can speak to them, obviously, figure out if they would pay to have that problem solved, and then kind of work with them to develop the right solution. So build the product for them. Then they'll give you feedback. You'll iterate, and keep going from that. So the problem is what needs to stay consistent. Then your idea can sort of iterate and change to best solve that problem. But don't sort of have a solid idea in place and then just expect it to work. I think that's it's a big misconception when people start businesses. They start with an idea and then try and find customers. It's completely the wrong way around. You start by finding the problem, which will lead you to the people experiencing that problem, and then you can think about the idea.
That's a good suggestion, actually. I have so much to learn from you, and hopefully my interns also will do the same. I just wanted to ask you, what will be your convenient timing where you can get to speak to my interns?
Just let me know what kind of times would work best for you. I think Friday this week possibly could work quite well. I've some gaps there. If not next week, I have more gaps. So just let me know when would be best, and then we'll fit something in.
Okay. The question might sound very stupid. Let's say I have a budget of £100 for my business. So marketing plays a very important role, for any business to grow. And from that £100, how much would you recommend me to, keep a cap only for marketing?
It depends what other things you need. So is that £100 exclusively for marketing, or do you also with that need to set up a website or buy some kind of a product to sell, or the X, Y, and Z? I think it's I'd need to have more detail, but I think the bottom line is you can do marketing completely for free, because don't underestimate the value of your own time. If you're willing to work for free for yourself to start the business, that's worth something. That's worth a lot. And basically, with marketing, you can do a lot of stuff manually. Like, for example, if you've identified your target customer on Twitter and they're likely to tweet a certain thing, just go on there and send them all a message, or go in a certain Facebook group if you've identified them there and promote yourself there. So there are lots of things you can do. I think at the beginning, at that scale, your time is a much more valuable asset than spending £100 on this or that or the other. I think at that point, it's much better to use your time and to really speak to the customers and understand what they're looking for, because then once you sort of get more money in and you have a larger marketing budget, then you have a much better idea as well of who exactly you want to target, because you've kind of defined that target customer through your own hard work. But that doesn't need to cost you anything.
In the next 5 years, what's your roadmap or your vision for roadmap as well as vision for your organization?
Well, finally bring the freelancing space into the 21st century as far as the big freelancing platforms are concerned. By that point, we're in an ideal world, we're either a very big player in the market, or we have been acquired by a competitor who's, using that to adapt for the better. But yeah, ultimately, bottom line, we want to, I want to completely revolutionize this space and change it for the better.
Okay, do you have any other competitor who are working in the same model like you are doing, or have you come across anyone?
Not exactly the same. There are some that are doing. There are something I'm very happy about is there are some startups out there who are looking to make freelancing fairer, but the issue is that many of them operate in a completely non-scalable way. They act more like a freelancing agency than like a technology platform that can scale. So, they are very much doing the right thing, I think, but they won't ever be able to do it at such a large scale, whereas we're sort of built in a way and, in a position in such a way that we can scale and kind of do this on a very large scale as well. We just, need to work our way to get there. So, yeah, and that being said, nobody is kind of doing exactly what we are doing, as far as I'm aware. At least nobody who's making any kind of serious progress from what I can see.
Okay. So here's my last question to you, because that way even people will get to learn, whoever is will come across this podcast episode, and also myself. And the question is that if somebody has to get started with their coding journey, and let's say if you were their mentor, what exactly is the roadmap that you would suggest for them so that with some time frame they also become a full stack web developer or grow more into the space? What would you recommend?
I'd say build projects that you're passionate about, basically for yourself, and that can, because that way you'll learn lots of different things. So rather than thinking, oh, and now I need to learn React, you're kind of thinking, oh, wouldn't it be cool to build a website that can do X, Y, and Z for these people? That's something you're very passionate about now. So then now, first step, build the website. Oh, wait, you need to learn React, but now you're learning React to actually build the website. So the passion isn't learning React or learning PHP or learning this, that, and the other. Your goal is to build a website that you're, really passionate about. So those are just like sort of a means to an end. So that's the way that's always worked best for me in terms of learning stuff. And then the other thing is, that way you can learn lots of different things, and then also in a job interview, you have something really interesting to talk about, because some people might sort of say, oh, I haven't built any cool exciting large projects because I haven't had a client to pay me to build that, or I haven't had a job before I've built that. But you can come up with your own scenario, just build something for yourself, have it as a learning experience, and then that's it's a way to really stand out in an interview, to show, oh, I already built this project, and to really demonstrate your skill. And it's something you're passionate about too. So I'd say that's the best way. Build kind of a project for yourself, and then use that as an opportunity to learn lots of different technologies and really refine your skills.
And how important, I mean, like, even though, let's say, I take your suggestions to work on some project. I'm sorry, I thought the previous question was the last question, but here's another one.
That's all right.
So this will be the last one. All right. So how important do you think is the concept of data structure and algorithm important here?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say fairly important. Certainly. I mean, I want to be just mindful that I studied computer science at university, where data structures and algorithms are seen as very, very important. I have never had a job as a software developer. Sort of the developers who have worked with us were, I asked them some interview questions, but they were sort of predominantly interviewed by my co-founders, our CTO. So, I don't feel overly qualified to talk on this subject, but yeah, I would say that fairly important, but it's not the only thing. There are lots of other components that make a good software engineer as well. Lots of other skills you need to have.
The other day I had a talk with a friend, and this friend happens to be a very good coder. So he was of the opinion that it takes a genius to be a coder, and I said that it takes consistency to be a coder. So we are still arguing whether it's a genius or a consistent person. So let's see how that goes.
Yeah. No, I mean, I absolutely get what you mean, though. I'm more in the line of consistent. I mean, I really take issue with that word, genius, because I mean, there's that great Albert Einstein quote of, if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, then it'll live its whole life believing it is stupid. I don't think, I think people like sometimes think, you have like a genius, they can do everything. And then you have someone who's, not smart and they can do nothing. But that's just not how the world works. Like some people are, I mean, basically everyone is really good at one certain thing. Maybe that's, something that they're rewarded for in school. Maybe it's something they're not rewarded for in school, and then they think they're unintelligent, but actually they have a really good skill. So yeah, I didn't really like to sort of think about things in those terms, but something that is very much true in the starting a business space, or just really progressing in life, is consistency is always king. If you are very talented and very intelligent, it can get you further. But that's on top of, putting in the hard work and being persistent. That it's much, if you can only have one, either you're, super intelligent, or you are very, very consistent and, very persistent. I would a million times rather be very persistent than very, very intelligent. Obviously, if you can have both, that's great, but it's much more important to be persistent than intelligent.
Okay. Anyways, I think we should wrap it up today. For today, I hope in future also I'll get the opportunity to speak to you. And I did share the news of Revolancer reaching us out on our first podcast, and that I did mention this to one of my mentors, and he was really happy about it. Let's hope he likes this video as well. And just want to say
Happy
thank
to
you.
hear that.
Thank you so much for your time. I think it should be a wrap
Thank you for
up
having
here.
me.
And I'm pretty much, we will also have some more in the future. Let's see if I have any questions from people coming in. I'll just pile them up and then I'll get back to you on this.
Yeah, please do. Sounds good.
All right. And hopefully I'll see you someday when you visit our country. And do
Yeah,
come
I'd
to
love
this
to.
side of the country. Anyways, thank you so much, Karl, for your time.
Sounds good. Thank you so much for your time. Take care. Bye.